We did not have merchandise on the shelves for day one of our open.
Oh, shit.
The reason had nothing to do with a lack of merch in Kyoto. It had nothing to do with the shelves not being installed, and had everything to do with customs codes.
Really?
So the Kyoto team, the Kurasu team in Kyoto, I mean, they supply coffee to every corner of the planet,
Right.
right? From west to east to north to south. Now, early on, we were told quite clearly from one source that you would need a certificate of origin and a health certificate for the beans. And then they're ready to export to Dubai for our open. And then we're told, oh, no, you don't need the health certificate. Okay, great. So we're ready to export. And then it gets to the door ready to be picked up and schlepped from Kyoto to Osaka and Osaka to DXB. It turns out that you do need the health certificate. And so coffee's locked up in a customs warehouse in Japan. So, and same with the merchandise. And the merchandise was attached to that shipment, and you can't get the merchandise separated from the coffee shipment. Headaches.
Have you been thinking about starting a coffee side hustle? Our brand new Start a Coffee Side Hustle Mastermind Group is launching this August. A 3-month online program designed for new or upcoming coffee business owners anywhere in the world. You'll define your business fundamentals, shape your business blueprint, and learn how to navigate the coffee industry in 2025 small scale, including how to use tools like ChatGPT for smarter planning. It's a grounded, guided way to get started with the support of people who have done it many, many times before. Apply now at mapperforward.coffee/group coaching. Check the show notes for details. Welcome to the Mapper Forward Middle East podcast, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and this is episode 4 of an awesome 5-part series with David and Valeria from Kurasu UAE. As we found out in the last episode. In this series, we're talking about how to open a globally recognized specialty coffee brand in the UAE. And in this episode, we're talking about what were the unexpected things that happened in the process. Guys, I have a question about something that I don't know if you're thinking about this as you go through this process, but you said that it was unexpected that you would have the line out the door. And I love that that was unexpected. We have this thing I think it happens in Saudi quite a lot as well, but when a new shiny thing opens up, right? And it is really, really popular for 6 months, and then no one goes there. You guys have been in Dubai a lot longer than I have, but that's typically the vibe that happens here. Am I right?
Absolutely.
I don't get that feeling that that's what's going to happen with Kurasu.
Amen.
Because, if I was to correlate Kurasu with a brand that is, I get very similar vibes. Do you guys know flaky pastry? Oh, I'm so glad you don't know about them. Go and find them. And then you can call me and say, oh my God, thank you, Lee. Flaky pastry is another one of those brands. I think it's it was founded here in the Emirates, but it's one of those businesses that no matter where it opens, it is a hit.
Mm.
Do you guys expect that Kurasu is going to be like that, the same as flaky pastry, or do you think you'll have to keep moving around to avoid the kind of boom and kind of like crickets after that? What do you expect?
We are confident that wherever Kurasu opens in the UAE, there will be customers. And that speaks volumes to, again, the brand and the quality. Like we had mentioned in episode 1, there are so many coffee shops in the UAE, and there are so many good coffee shops in the UAE. So how do you distinguish yourself from the what feels like unlimited number of really good coffee shops in the UAE? And that's ingredients and that's service or experience. We are the only coffee shop in the UAE that serves coffee where the beans were roasted in Kyoto. So you are just getting a unique flavor profile, unique notes, unique experience. It's a rotating production such that in 1 month we'll have a very specific varietal from Rwanda or Ethiopia or Guatemala, and it'll change very soon thereafter. What we're also really excited about doing is ensuring that the brand is detectable in every shop we open in the UAE, but nonetheless, one can discern the differences.
Oh,
Kurasu Darwassel and Kurasu number 2 and Kurasu number 5. Inshallah, we get
yeah,
that.
wow. Inshallah.
Yeah. So we think this brand has legs for the region, and we wouldn't have the ambitious growth plans that we do if we didn't think it would succeed wherever we open.
Yeah, that's exciting. What are some of the unexpected things? Like I say this, we're recording this in August, early August of 2025. That reference is for the future versions of you that come back and all of us that come back and watch this. But 2025 has proved to be a difficult year for coffee. What are some of the... Did you guys know that before you opened, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, great. What are some of the unexpected things that happened during this process?
So we've talked a lot about coffee, but something that we sell as well, and that's very popular in the region and I think worldwide, is matcha.
Uh-huh.
And people are obsessed with matcha.
That is wild. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't understand it, but hey.
And unfortunately, it's also been recently, especially rough. Matcha production is slower. I don't know if you've seen over the news that there's shortage in matcha. So having to navigate getting the matcha here, having enough matcha, making sure it's the best quality. Obviously, if it comes from Japan and it's Kurasu, coming from Kurasu, it's going to be the best. But I think that was tricky. Making sure all the shipments were there on time, to making sure we don't run out. Even when it comes to branding, we weren't expecting to have such a big influx of people, and we ran out of cups that said Kurasu. So things like that, small things like that. But yeah, those are the things that come to my head. Also, coffee equipment, calibration, machinery that we didn't know about, small things like getting the water to be the correct, I don't even know the hardness, yeah, for it not to be that hard. Small things like that you don't expect, but that are crucial in serving a good cup of coffee. A customer comes in and you can't say, oh, let me get my water softer or let me soften up the water. It just doesn't happen that fast. But thankfully, we have a great team. Amin is great. There's so many great companies here that come and help, and Dubai is unique for the fact that you call and you can have service at your door
in hours
time. So
yeah,
so putting out small fires, which when it's your first business, they don't seem that small in the moment because you feel like you're gonna ruin it for your customer and they're never gonna come back. But yeah, navigating these small things.
What about the legal side of things? Like opening I know that you're a corporate lawyer, Valeria, so I'm sure from that side of things it's easier, but opening businesses in different countries comes with a whole, because this dum-dum here, me, has opened businesses in 4 different countries now, and it hurts. Like navigating the rules in different countries, it's like a whole new way of doing business in every country. And when you're opening a franchise different from the country that it's originating in, what is that like? Does that come with unexpected issues?
We did not have merchandise on the shelves for day 1 of our open.
Oh, shit.
The reason had nothing to do with a lack of merch in Kyoto. It had nothing to do with the shelves not being installed, and had everything to do with customs codes.
Really?
So the Kyoto team, the Kurasu team in Kyoto, they supply coffee to every corner of the planet.
Right.
Right? From west to east and north to south. Now, early on, we were told quite clearly from one source that you would need a certificate of origin and a health certificate for the beans. And then they're ready to export to Dubai for our open. And then we're told, oh, no, you don't need the health certificate. Okay, great. So we're ready to export. And then it gets to the door ready to be picked up and schlepped from Kyoto to Osaka and Osaka to DXB. It turns out that you do need the health certificate. And so coffee's locked up in a customs warehouse in Japan. So, and same with the merchandise. And the merchandise was attached to that shipment, and you can't get the merchandise separated from the coffee shipment. Headaches. The types of things you don't learn in business school or in undergraduate. It's the school of hard knocks, so to speak. And you learn how to circumnavigate all these strange bureaucratic requirements that are supposed to be clear and transparent, but are anything but. So that's
different in every country.
And different in every country, which is very frustrating. And then you had to get things translated. So things came in Japanese and we had to get them translated. And of course, you can't translate them if they're not attested. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So that's one of the challenges of running Kurasu, in that, as we mentioned, all of our coffee comes roasted from Kyoto. We're not importing green, and we're not roasting at one of the many incredible roasteries here in Dubai. So importing and setting a cadence of your import such that you're not running out of coffee, but not importing too much, is difficult and was not really something we considered early on.
No.
So these are all small nuances that you only really learn to appreciate once you face them yourself.
Lucky you've got an Amin to age your coffee for you appropriately, and stock control and all of that.
Yeah.
I mean, and this is the thing about opening a coffee business that most people assume, well, I'll just buy some equipment, I'll hire a barista. How hard can it be?
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
It's way harder than you might think.
Yeah. And back to the water filtration. So early on, we were doing Kai Peterson, who's the head of instruction from Kyoto. He came to town and trained our team for a good 2 weeks pre-open.
Yeah.
And first few cups just weren't tasting great, from our pour overs to our milk based. And it turned out our water filtration was off, despite the installation company ensuring us time and time again that it was run correctly. And then we had to get a second opinion, where it was only then that we found out, after 4 or 5 days of tasting, that the water was shit.
Yeah.
We had to recap.
You guys should go visit Raw and see what they've done with their water filtration. Have you heard of this?
No.
They have installed a water filtration system that could filter the water for a small city. It is so impressive. And they're happily show anyone.
Wow.
And say, any cafe, come learn from us. It's not just something that is under the bench. It's on the second floor. It is huge. It's worth seeing, because they want their customers to be able to take their water home and brew the coffee there with the same water. Yeah, it's really fascinating. I'm because again, Elixir specialty coffee was all about the water that we use. So I'm always fascinated by what water people are using in their coffee, but it makes such a big difference. And these are the things that people don't understand about opening a shop. Can we talk a little bit about the coffee crisis, talking about unexpected things? What did you guys know about the coffee crisis before you opened Kurasu?
So there's actually another brand related to Kurasu that you might not know, and that's 2050.
Okay, I haven't heard of it.
So 2050 is Yozo's brainchild. There's one in Kyoto, and I hope I'm not butchering this. Is there one in Singapore?
Yes.
There is one in Singapore. And Lee, I'll let you guess. Why is the shop called 2050?
It's got something to do with carbon footprints and with net zero, the Paris Accord.
So, and again, I might be butchering the metric, but half of the world's coffee supply will be completely eradicated by 2050. And
I think it's more than that.
it might be much.
Yeah,
more. Yeah.
Because the general consensus amongst agronomists and agricultural engineers is that we have 20 harvests left
Right.
in coffee.
So that
go
number, it's got to be more than half. That's right. But so the shop is called 2050 because it's about the future of sustainable.
Right. Nice.
Yeah, and it's an incredible brand. And again, that's Yozo.
Yeah.
Yeah, not shocked.
So impressive.
Right. So that, to me, as someone who didn't come from the trade at all, who knew nothing about coffee aside from how to brew it and which varietals I preferred and which origins I liked, and being able to discern between a really good V60 and a really shit one, that was eye-opening. And I don't think, not that I don't think, I am certain that a vast majority of self-proclaimed coffee drinkers have no idea what the state of the coffee trade is today, and that
1,000%.
they might very soon be drinking their last cup of coffee. So that's certainly been frightening.
Yeah.
Getting into an industry that might be on its dying days or in its dying days.
To your point, it's crazy how I also started learning more about this recently, and I speak to people and I speak to them about this, and they say, "You're crazy. That's not true." Like literally, that's their like, no, it's not. Like that can't happen. And I'm like, yes, and it's happening.
It's
How are
it's
you?
not. It can't happen. We're in the middle of it. We're in the process.
But they treat me like I'm saying something
Yeah.
totally unhinged.
So the parallel I draw, I mentioned in episode 1, I come from the diamond trade originally. I set up a diamond business in 2018. And for those that don't know much about the diamond trade, it also, according to some pundits or experts, may be on its last legs. The diamond.
Yeah, lab-grown diamonds.
Exactly right. And so 5 years ago, if you had spoken to those in the diamond trade to say, hey, look, lab-grown might take so much market share away, whereby the diamond trade will cease to exist, it was an eye roll and it'll be fine. Well, 5 years later, it ain't fine. On the contrary, natural diamond pricing and demand are both in free fall.
Yeah.
We need to ensure that that same mistake, via ignorance and perhaps a subconscious refusal to believe that the trade is going anywhere, to protect the industry and protect those that are impacted most by it. And that's way upstream to producers.
Yeah. Not to sweep things under the rug, but actually do something about it and
100%.
find a solution now that we can.
You know, we started talking about this in 2018 on the podcast. So the global podcast is 1,400 plus episodes in. And when we started saying we've got to start shifting, otherwise we're going to hit a wall as an industry, people really thought, she's crazy. And now what's happening is Mapple Forward receives messages saying, you know, I thought you were just being a doomer. I thought you were being dramatic. I thought you were just like clickbaiting us. I wish I had have listened to you because I lost my business because I didn't pay attention. And now we're in a crisis. If you don't have the right supply chain partners, you are in trouble. You have a very small window to be able to take care of this. And I wonder, like, how do you guys approach that with your team? Did they expect, do they know about it? And is there something that they've come to expect?
To be frank, I don't think we've consciously had that conversation with them. But again, as we mentioned, so many of our colleagues are not just baristas because it's a day job, but it's because they love the industry. They love the product. I would be surprised if they were well-versed in what's happening.
Okay, great.
But you know what? You make a good point. It's probably worth having that conversation with them. And it's probably our oversight that we haven't.
Yeah. Last question before we go into the next episode. You, Valeria, mentioned matcha. Were you guys prepared for the matcha craze and the signature drink craze?
So I'm a matcha lover, but
Really?
yeah, I'm a matcha lover.
You're the first person in coffee I've met that's a matcha lover.
Really?
Now I have to know everything. Yeah,
I
yeah,
love
yeah, yeah.
matcha. And I feel
Wow.
it's because coffee sometimes upsets my stomach. So there's moments or months where I
Oh.
just don't have coffee and only have matcha. But the truth is that this light roast has done so wonders to my stomach, and I've had no stomach issues. So I haven't had matcha in a while in the mornings now that I think about it. But I I knew there was a craze, but I didn't expect it to grow this much. And the thing is, I like my matcha to taste like grass. You know how people say matcha tastes like grass? I enjoy that taste. It's an acquired taste that I enjoy. So lots of people go to places, have matcha that tastes like strawberry, tastes like
Yeah.
pineapple, tastes like mango. And at Kurasu, this is something we don't do. But we only have
Really?
ceremonial, the sweetened version, and then we have our signature drink, which is the matcha latte espresso, which
Uh-huh.
I adore. But not all coffee lovers love matcha, and especially mixing the two. It might sound a
No.
bit
A dirty matcha makes zero sense to me. Like, and
Imagine.
like for context, I drink yerba mate all day,
really.
right? It's my family are from Syria. That's our traditional drink is yerba mate and coffee. But like, so I can get down with the whole grassy flavors. I do
Yeah.
not understand matcha. Like, I feel like it's a different kind of an acquired taste,
is,
and I've
it is.
tried. It's, but like, I feel like if you like it, you love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
It's
seems to be
fascinating.
something I was not prepared for that thing to happen in our industry.
So yeah, we weren't expecting it, but it happened, and our matcha is one of our best sellers. Over most coffee drinks. Our matcha
Do you
is
think, on that, sorry to interrupt you there, do you think that matcha is saving most businesses in coffee at the moment?
no, I don't think so. Because
Really?
I don't think so. I think there's lots of places in Dubai that sell really good coffee, but similar to us, their matcha offerings are very simple, standard, basic. And those places where they sell different flavored matchas and that most people are attracted to also serve breakfast and serve other things. And I think maybe that's what all encompassing saves the business.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that there's a few businesses around the world that would not have made it if it wasn't for matcha and signature drinks.
Yeah, maybe.
Just because the coffee is getting very expensive,
Yeah, very expensive.
and they can't increase, they can't keep up with the price increases. They have to absorb a lot of the losses.
Yeah.
Whereas matcha, you can charge a lot more than you can charge for coffee.
The margin.
And the margins are what's saving a lot of people. Yeah, really interesting. Okay, one episode to go, folks, and we're going to talk about things on more of an industry level, the trajectory of the global coffee industry. So join us for the last episode of this series. Peace, love, and peanut butter. Have an amazing rest of your day. This episode is part of a 5-part series produced by Mapper Forward. Check the full playlist and guest details in the show notes, as well as how you can support our work in the coffee industry. Become a premium YouTube subscriber, explore our Patreon and any brands we've partnered with to bring you this podcast. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It really does help us grow our audience.